It is the year 2022. We are in the month of June, and Rafael Nadal has won his slam number 22. Perhaps putting end to all debate on the greatest of all time. But right now, I have two gentlemen with me. One is a gold medal winner from Commonwealth and Asian Games, Somdev Devvarman, who is a well-known also tennis commentator. The other also very well-known tennis commentator and former Davis Cupper, the captain of Billie Jean King Cup team, Vishal Uppal. Vishal, I'll start with you. Has Rafael Nadal put an end to all debate on the greatest of all time?
Oh, that's a tough one. I'm biased towards Federer, but yeah, definitely. I mean, what he's done has been incredible. I think more importantly, the dominance he's shown at French Open, that has put the fear of clay in many a generation. And I think in my mind, he will go down as one of the greatest sportsperson of all time across all sports. I mean, from what he's achieved, it's incredible. The longevity of his career, his performances, and, more importantly, his never say die attitude. I mean, that's something people can really learn from and, really look up to. So I think, yeah, definitely one of the greatest. But yeah.
So let's hear you on this.
I mean, for me, the thing is that as of right now, it's hard to argue. It's really hard to argue. Not just obviously the numbers, that's what's, front and foremost. But I mean, 22 at 36 years old, 14 times at Roland Garros, every single slam twice. I mean, the only second guy to do it is the only other guy to do it is Novak. But I think the problem is that the debate doesn't end here and now. The debate ends when everybody hangs up their rackets. At least the debate for this generation. And when it comes to Roger, I mean, I think we'd be optimistic to say we'd be hoping for more. When it comes to Rafa, at this point, at least for this year, he's not the favorite anymore. I don't think he's going to play Wimbledon. I'll be surprised if he competes at New York. And in terms of Novak, I think he's still very close to his peak. I don't think he's falling off yet on any of the surfaces. So yes, as of right now, it is Rafa, but I think there's still a few more chapters in this book before we put an end to it and before the next generation of tennis players comes about and starts winning slams. So, I mean, right now, he's the GOAT. No problem. There's absolutely no qualms about that.
Argument in that.
Yeah, no arguments whatsoever.
Vishal, I was reading somewhere that Rafael Nadal had said during this tournament, he had practically put his foot to sleep to be able to go through the rounds that he went through. Just tell us a little bit about what does it require for a player to go through that kind of pain to be winning a slam.
Well, I can only tell you what a mere mortal feels like when you're hurting. I can't tell you what Rafael Nadal goes through. I mean, it's incredible. I mean, we only hear how much pain he's in, and he's taking all these injections to numb the pain and stuff like that. But for him to come out and run the way he runs, and for him to work hard the way he works out, I think they really need to do some serious, research on his body and how he recovers so fast. There has to be some secret formula to this because, the last thing I remember was Pete Sampras at Wimbledon when he had shin splints. We remember that he didn't, practice on the days he was off because he was just resting his leg so that he could just compete in matches. And for Nadal to do what he does, it really has to be a case study. How does he manage to recover the way he recovers? Because if you look at all the other players, I mean, whether it's an Andy Murray or, it's a Dominic Thiem now, younger guy, they're struggling. Once they've had an injury, they're struggling to get back into it. And Rafael Nadal is 1 week, he's like, I'm doubtful for the French Open. And the next week it comes out and he beats everyone black and blue. So, yeah, I mean, it's unbelievable what he's gone through physically. And that's why I've always said that his will is far greater than his skill.
But Vishal, here's my question. Do you think Rafael Nadal always underplays French Open? He never comes out and says he's the favorite.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of mind games that he plays, definitely. I mean, even before the finals, I read a statement where he said, I'd rather get a new leg in, instead of winning the final. I'm like, okay, then go get a new leg. I mean, there are these mind games that he plays. It's year on year. So now, literally, every time he says I'm injured, I'm hurting, I don't even take him seriously because I know he's gonna come out at French Open and he's gonna run like there is no tomorrow. So
I heard you saying on the telecast, on the broadcast, that people who have this kind of foot injury, they perhaps also have to undergo amputation. And Rafa, with that kind of injury, he's going on running the way he's running.
Well, so the injury is bone necrosis. It's not an injury. It's a chronic situation that he's going through. It's bone necrosis.
Mueller syndrome, is that what it is called?
Yeah, it essentially is. The bone marrow in that part of his foot is dead. There's no more bone marrow. So there's a probability. I'm not saying it's a possibility, but there's a probability in such cases. And I checked with some doctors. I checked with a few of the physios and on the tour as well. And they said that the pain is so severe. So here's what we have to understand. While he's numbing his foot with anesthetics, with painkillers, with whatever he's numbing his foot with, the problem doesn't change. We're just masking a problem. It's the same as cortisone. When you have an injury and you use cortisone, you feel less pain, but the injury still exists. So in Rafa's case, the problem still exists, but we're masking it with painkillers. So he's essentially making it worse and worse and worse, and that's the choice that he's making because of his will to compete and his will to win. And this is the only way he can play, because in Rome, we saw him play without painkillers and he looked like a completely different player. So, and he's also one of those players that does travel with his doctor. So, when you're talking about the situation that he's in, there's a possibility that people with this issue a lot later in their lives, they have to go ahead and do that. Now, obviously keeping in mind that, while saying that Rafa is going to have the best doctors, he is going to be, ahead of the schedule. He is going to do everything he can in order to live the most normal life. But the problem is that he's damaged it so much that he can't currently practice if he's off painkillers. So I think now he's, from what I understood from him, his team, they've now taken a backseat. Obviously, they're going to go on a well-deserved vacation, but they've taken a backseat to now see what's the most beneficial thing not for Rafa Nadal's career anymore, but for Rafa Nadal's life. For him to have a pain-free life, for him to continue being active when he's done playing. We know he loves playing football. We know he loves playing golf. He loves being outdoors. He loves being on his boat. So for him to have a high quality of life, what's the next thing required? And it's honestly very similar to what Roger's done with his knee. The first time he came back, he had to undergo another procedure again. And now when you ask him, he says, well, I'm 40 years old. It's much more about me living a healthy life with my kids, being able to play tennis, enjoy being outdoors, going hiking, things I like doing. So I think now that he has achieved this, it's going to allow him, that time, that well-earned time to make those kind of decisions. And so that's why I won't be surprised if we don't see too much more of Rafa. I do think the end is nearer now than it ever has been.
Vishal, would you say that pretty much this year is the last year that we will see these two on the circuit, Novak and Rafa together? Because we've already seen Novak and Rafa together in French, not in Australian. We don't know what happens in the next two. And we also don't know whether Roger Federer ever returns.
Well, a generational shift is definitely happening. Whether we're going to see Nadal, carry on much longer, like Som said, is something that we'll find out in due course of time. But Novak definitely looks pretty damn good to go on for a few more years. He's looking fit, he's looking sharp, and most importantly, he doesn't have the same injury issues that Nadal and Federer are, facing. So I think definitely a big generational shift is coming. Tennis is going to be at a huge loss with with these guys going into the sunsets of their career. But at the end of the day, there is a lot of new exciting talent also coming up, and they in my mind may not reach the greatness that these three have reached, but they'll definitely keep the sport pretty entertaining and alive.
And particularly the men's draw, if we look at the men's draw, it's just so competitive. It's ironic we are talking about Nadal's foot here, but the man who hobbled out of the tournament was Zverev, who was giving some real high competition, Somdev, to Rafael Nadal. And I for once thought that could have turned out to be the best match of the tournament.
Yeah, it really was a shame it ended the way it did. You don't want to see anybody in that kind of agonizing pain. I mean, that's excruciating. I think most tennis players have probably felt that at some stage in their career. I know I did as a junior, not luckily not when I was playing. Good news and bad news, obviously. Bad news for Zverev is that I thought he was playing about as well as he possibly could have played, not just for that match, but also in his win against Alcaraz. I think he played simply phenomenal to beat Carlos Alcaraz in the kind of form that he was. In the next match, I mean, all you can do as a tennis player is put yourself in the right positions. He was up a break, sure, broke back, but then he was up 6-2 in the breaker. Unfortunately, didn't close that out. Sure, Rafa greatness, but from the Zverev perspective, is he disappointed? Yes, but he put himself in a position to win. He didn't close, and he needs to work on that. But then bounced back unbelievably well. He was, I thought he was playing better tennis than Rafa was, but Rafa was using, different parts of his intangibles, his game, his experience, in Philippe Chatrier to find a way to claw back, which he's done so many times in his career. But from a Zverev perspective, I think that would give me confidence. The only thing I would be worried about is, if that ankle injury will be a problem later on in his career moving on. I certainly hope it's not, because from what we've seen, he's really taken his game to the next level. He's got Hugo Gravil, who was a physio at the ATP Tour, who's his personal physio. In terms of, he also put out a message that said no bone has been broken, which is very good science. It's just a ligament tear, ligament strains. It's not great, but you will take it based on, we thought if it was broken, now we're looking at 8 months. But now that he's given us that it's a ligament tear, we're looking at 8 weeks. Maybe there's a small chance, in my opinion, that he is back for New York. I'm not sure, but at least knowing Zverev, knowing the team that he has, the resources that he has, they're going to be very aggressive with rehab. There's a small chance that he's back in New York. So good news and bad news. The only hope I have for him is hope this injury doesn't play into the way he's moving for the rest of his career.
Vishal, for the interest of my listeners, could you please tell us how the injury happened? Because there was no replay that was shown by the replay cameras. I believe the replays were shown at the court. To me, who just saw it one time, it looked like his foot had got stuck in the soil. Could you just explain what it was and how did that fall happen?
Yeah, I think Rika, he went to, while he was trying to slide for the ball, I think his foot got stuck and he just rolled over it and his entire body weight, fell on top. I went through exactly the same thing in 1998 at the national championships. And I remember how painful that was. I was out of action for 4 months. Post that, I had bad ligament tears, and it really, put me back by 4 months. So I think it's a nasty injury, no doubt. It's a very nasty injury. But again, science has improved a lot. Healing technology, healing methodology has improved a lot. So I'm pretty sure that they will be very aggressive with it, like Som said, and they will make sure that he's up and about, as soon as possible. To my mind, if he had a fracture, he should have been partying, but he's got a ligament tear, which is far worse. So I think he's going to take some healing, he's going to take some rehab, but rest assured, it's nothing too untoward that he can't come back. It might take him 2 or 3 months, but again, when he comes back, the big question will be, how soon does he get back being match sharp and match fit? We're seeing guys like Dominic Thiem and stuff really struggling to get back on the tour, because the tour is so competitive. So, that's a big question. We'll have to wait and watch. But I think, like Som said, he's got great physios, great doctors around him, and he'll be back soon.
We spoke about the semi-final match. Let's talk about the final. And here, Casper Ruud has, in fact, made a joke about being Rafael Nadal's victim. So, what would you say of the moment when he broke Rafael Nadal in the second set? And Nadal quickly comes back, and it almost seems like that moment when he was broken, he just couldn't accept that he was behind in the match.
There's a crazy stat about Rafael Nadal. when he gets broken at Roland Garros, about 47% of the time, so about half the time, he breaks back in the next game. For me, that stat is absolutely mind-blowing. Keeping in mind, it was 1-3 when that happened. What's next? He wins 11 games in a row. So this is the kind of pressure that Rafa puts on his opponents. They have to play. Well, two things have to happen if you want to beat Rafa. They have to play absolutely mind-blowing tennis. They can't miss. They have to go for it and they have to execute. If you leave the ball half short, Rafa is hitting a forehand. If Rafa hits too many forehands, it's trouble. It's trouble. And over here in this match against Ruud, it's just a matchup. Tennis at the end of the day is all about matchups. It's all about the intriguing matchup. That's why I thought it was so great to see Zverev, because the matchup for him versus Rafa, it really works out because he has a massive serve, he can hold serve, and he can attack with that backhand which he likes to lean into. Casper Ruud's a very different player. He's much more of a David Ferrer kind of player who loves running around, hitting his forehand. But he doesn't have he's got a really good serve, but it's certainly not among the top 10 in the game, and his backhand is certainly not among the top 20 in the game. So it's just about patterns. We've seen Rafa destroy players with one-handed backhands on the finals at Roland Garros. We've seen him beat Roger, we've seen him beat Thiem, we've seen him beat Stan, and of course great double-handed backhands in Soderling. I know he lost to him once, but even Novak, including this time, including last year at the finals as well. So 2 years ago at the finals, excuse me. So once Rafa figured out that this matchup was so much in his favor, he didn't really have to get away from plan A, because plan A was working. In the first set, he started strong, he went out hot. Once he was ahead, did he get broken? Yes, but guess what? He broke back again. Then once you found a button where you can really trouble your opponent, in this case Casper Ruud, I don't think Rafa needed to do a whole lot different. He said, this is my game plan. I don't care if it's, I don't have to beat you 55 different ways. I'm successful beating you one way. And one of my greatest strengths is to have the mental ability to engage, to lock in and continue doing the work that I do. That's what's made Rafael Nadal so great. And for me, it's just amazing to watch that he can do it at this age and battling through injuries as well. But honestly, Casper Ruud, great tournament. Anybody who makes the finals of any slam or any tournament, really, unbelievable tournament, unbelievable season. Just too bad you're up against Rafa, and he was right. He's not the only victim.
Well, in the end, I'll have to.
I just want to add quickly to that. I felt Casper Ruud had lost the match even before he entered the court. Because if you watched him, his body language wasn't there. If you looked at him, his mentality wasn't that he believed he could beat Nadal, let alone give him a good fight. I mean, even when he played really good points, I remember one point in the match where he ran and picked up a drop shot and came up with a very good angle. He was almost apologetic to Rafael Nadal. He was apologizing to Nadal. I mean, you're in the French Open final. Come on. So I think Casper Ruud didn't believe in himself. No matter what, he did not believe in himself. And you need all the belief in the world if you want to play against Rafael Nadal. And if you fall short by even 0.1%, you're not beating this guy. And I think
also, Vishal, there's a history between the two. Him having gone to the Rafael Nadal Academy, and in the end, he said thank you to Nadal for that.
But Rika, what you have to also know about athletes and sports persons they are desperate to beat their idols. They look forward to beating their idols. I mean, growing up as kids, when we would play with our dad being our idol, our first plan was to try and beat our dad. So every top athlete wants to beat his idol. Ask anyone who's growing up. Some will tell you he wanted to beat all his seniors all the time, me included, because I was a little ahead of the curve from him when he was a 16-year-old. So, you're looking to beat your idols. And for Casper Ruud, this was probably the biggest opportunity, because I don't think he's going to get another one.
Okay, in the end, I'll have to ask the both of you, starting with Vishal, your most favorite shot of Rafael Nadal. Mine is the drop shot.
I mean, I think his biggest weapon, his forehand. That's a thing of beauty. I've seen a lot of coaches really insisting a lot on, technique. So for me, every time you watch him hit a forehand and the way he controls and commands the point with his forehand is a beauty. Even against Zverev, that set point down, he just ran down from what 8-10 feet behind the baseline. He comes with a short, forehand short cross-court angle to pass him. I mean, he comes up with some ridiculous stuff.
What about you, So?
Hard to disagree with Vishal, but since he said the forehand, I'm going to try and find something different. I think one of the most underrated things in sport is to be able to do the exact same thing repeatedly over and over again, and do it like it's new. Do it like it's something that you're doing for the first time, with the same kind of intensity and the same kind of focus and the same kind of concentration. So I've read a lot about Rafael Nadal. One of his idols is also Tiger Woods, and both of them share this similar trait: is their mental tenacity, their ability to forget things that have happened and only focus on job at hand. And job at hand is, how do I find the best way to win the next point? So yeah, his drop shots are great. His forehand, obviously, in my opinion, the greatest shot in the history of tennis. But I think the mental tenacity is something that I enjoy, because there's no off switch. When Rafael Nadal is sitting on the bench, he's still focused on his water bottles. When he's lost a point or won a point, he still cleans the baseline off with his foot. When he's about to have a pre-serving motion, he's got his routines that allow him to focus and concentrate on exactly what he needs to do. So for me, being a tennis geek, being a tennis nerd, being somebody who loves watching the intricacies of the greats, I just can't get enough about how well he concentrates and focuses at every moment through his entire career.
Well, Som and Vishal, I hope that we are able to see more of him, because he's promised to the Philip Shatria audience that he will keep coming back. But only time will tell, and probably the medicines that he gets to have, and the diagnosis of his foot injury. Thank you very, very much for joining me on the chat.